In terms of how the Free Will Baptists relate to the Shenandoah Valley, during the war, we understand that in the Shenandoah Valley, at Fortress Monroe, the Free Will Baptists made their first entrance. After the onset of the war, the Free Will Baptists are helping throughout the Shenandoah Valley, not far from the Confederacy capital in Richmond. As they traverse down through the valley, I want to share with you the next segment of that Free Will Baptist unfolding. In 1864, a young graduate of Dartmouth who was from Phillips, Maine, was very interested in getting involved in the war effort. This young man's name was Nathan Cook Brackett, a part of the United States Christian Commission, and as such he had been assigned to General Phil Sheridan's Union Army for the Shenandoah Valley Campaign. During the Shenandoah Valley Campaign, they moved down through the Shenandoah Valley, Stanton, Newmarket, Strasburg, Harrisonburg, Winchester, Charlestown, and eventually end up in Harper's Ferry, now West Virginia. Interestingly enough, on this side of the instructional platform, today's date is June the 20th. It is the celebration of West Virginia's statehood. On January the 1st of 1863, President Lincoln signed into effect West Virginia's statehood when 39 delegates decided that they wanted to form a pro-unionist Virginia. This had been debated for some time and over multiple issues. So Nathan Cook Brackett, while he was traversing the valley with Phil Sheridan, was exposed to many facets of the war, and his work efforts were tirelessly yet committedly delivered to both Confederate and Union soldiers. Nathan Cook Brackett read letters, delivered letters, wrote letters. He likely also read newspapers and poetry to soldiers. I can only imagine what it must have been like for Nathan Cook Brackett. One day he is attending academic classes at Dartmouth, and the next day he's attending war casualties in the Shenandoah Valley. As Brackett entered Harper's Ferry, he took several opportunities to make extensive observations. He was moving through the valley, not only attending the soldiers directly, but taking soldiers' pay and delivering that pay to railroad officials for the pay to be delivered back home to families for safekeeping. But he also makes recommendations to his denomination in Dover, New Hampshire, at the close of the war in 1865 with regard to particular possibilities and investments that the denomination might make in the Shenandoah Valley at the war's end. Because the Free Will Baptist certainly believed that at the war's end, one of the principal outcomes of the war would be the education of slaves who had been disenfranchised. I would like to read how it was that General Grant instructed Sheridan with regard to the Shenandoah Valley campaign, which will give us some idea of what was occurring in this region during the war in 1864. Grant instructed Sheridan in the following manner: "The people should be informed that so long as an army can subsist among them, recurrences of these raids must be expected, and we are determined to stop them at all hazards. Give the enemy no rest. Do all the damage to railroads and crops you can. Carry off stock of all descriptions and Negroes, as to prevent further planting. If the war is to last another year, we want the Shenandoah Valley to remain a barren waste. So you can understand by the way in which General Grant addresses Sheridan that there was a great militaristic operation ongoing here. With regard to Brackett's role in all of that, I too now would like to read a few quotes about Brackett from his own denomination and others. The first quote is from Burgess and Ward. Now, Burgess and Ward wrote the Free Will Baptist Cyclopedia. It's a huge book, about 3.5 inches thick. And about Nathan Cook Brackett, they say Brackett, quote, "Great work has been in connection with the Shenandoah Mission," unquote. And then another author, Joseph or Josephus Berry, Jr., who was one of the first regional historians here, he wrote that Brackett was, quote, "a courteous gentleman and was highly respected by all the people generally," unquote. And then also, in 1921, in a publication titled Studies in Social Sciences, Early Negro Education in West Virginia, Carter G. Woodson, who taught in West Virginia for a period, and then later in the District of Columbia, founds the Journal of Negro History, claimed that, quote, "a successful work had been accomplished under the direction of Dr. N.C. Brackett," unquote, in this state. So, with that sure founding behind an individual that had such commitment and sense of responsibility and the surest of duties, we know that later on a school is going to be founded in Harper's Ferry. So Brackett's early introduction to Harper's Ferry contributes to the institution of another fortress of another kind at yet another confluence between the Shenandoah and Potomac rivers. So in the years to come, Nathan Cook Brackett and the Free Will Baptist found Storer College in Harper's Ferry, West Virginia. Storer College was the first institution of higher education to which persons of color would be admitted, and it was also the first normal teachers' college to which persons of color would be admitted and trained to teach in the colored schools throughout this region, all within a 300-mile radius, according to Dr. Richard McKinney, who was one of the presidents of Storer College.